We in the Inner Mission Neighborhood Association, as you met us before, we are just we're about 200 something, 250 something people, and then we have coalition also with other neighborhood groups. So we probably have about, correct me if I'm, the central has about 500 easily. So we have about 1,000, members or so, and it's very loose members. It's not like we have like you have to pay $100 a year to fee or anything, but it's just like everything is very casual. And so I could only say for the Inner Mission Neighborhood Association, we originally it was formed in, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, where are you, Craig? Oh, his mom, Connie Weber, in the 70s, and then she passed away 2 years ago, and then so we just carry on, and just before, maybe a few years before COVID, during all this, Adeline was still alive. So they're trying to build all this affordable around us, and the city was just like behind our back, okay, trading favors, okay, I give you money, you buy another land, as long as we can build like affordable housing, market rate someplace else, then so we feel like we become the dumping ground of it, everything, because we have, the missions feel like we have no voice to be heard, especially now the city has this density law that basically everything we argue, they just like, no, it's that, very easy excuse, it's all about density law. So anyhow, so we getting stronger and stronger and want to have our voice heard by the city, by just the local, even the supervisor, but unfortunately our supervisor, the current one, just basically MIA and for the past several years, and her promises just never been carried on, or even just meeting with us, or just things that she promised that she would do. It just, correct me if I'm wrong, it just never resulted in anything. And so we just want something, we just simple thing, safety, clean street, not a containment zone from other neighborhood that, because no one in our neighborhood, especially in the Mission, because even though we have Bernal Heights totally in a different world. They are just like up the hill. So, out of sight, out of mind. And I forgot what I was going to say. So we just want to be heard. We just want to, whoever going to be the next mayor, aware that we're here. We are working class. A lot of us are working class immigrants, and they don't have time to protest, to come to meetings and stuff like that. So we, just a small group of us, trying to, pull together and just, get to be heard by the city. And that's why you're here, and we would have questions. People can have questions, and you better have good answers. And keep them. And that's it. Good luck.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do want to start out and saying thank you for having me as the moderator. I am a passionate San Franciscan. This is my city. This is our city. What comes after November is going to be a very different. Who we elect as mayor is going to set the tone for the next 4 years. That's huge. What we have right now, if you like it, great. You already have your decision made. If you don't like it, then you're going to have to start looking elsewhere, which is why we have quite a few interesting people who are running for mayor, and I'm really excited to interview you again. We've actually gone back for some years. I also want to say that tonight's meeting, oh, by the way, I'm a journalist, been working in San Francisco for a long time. I had a show on Cron, Making It in San Francisco. But I cover all things San Francisco. Tonight, we're going to focus on San Francisco, not on national politics, not on international politics. We simply don't have the time for it. It doesn't make sense in this forum. Now, if we can narrow it to the Mission District, which is why we're here, that would be even better. So, think San Francisco, think Mission, the rest for another day, for another time. Okay? Good?
Yeah.
Done. On that note, poor Farrell. Hi.
Erica.
Do you want to do a quick introduction on who you are?
Sure, I'd just say thank you everyone for having me here this evening. I will stand up to Jiz. It's great to be back here at TSF, but also thank you for this group getting together. And you know, for me, it's important. I'm lucky enough to be born and raised San Francisco kid. My wife and I are raising our 3 children here in San Francisco. Terry, our daughters, have been going to school together for years and years. And it's really important for me, you know, as running for mayor, is to make sure I am in every single neighborhood, listening to every single issue that's going on. And you know, I'm running for mayor because I believe we need change in City Hall. We need change of leadership and a change of direction as a city. My vision for our city is one of the safe, clean sidewalks with growing economy, with vibrant neighborhoods, and a city focused on families as well. And to me, those are basic things that I think we should, quite frankly, expect out of every government. It doesn't exist today. And you know, when I left City Hall in 2018, I was in City Hall for 7.5 years as supervisor and as interim mayor. I never thought I'd run for office again. I left because of my kids, but I am running again because of my kids. And our daughter, now the countdown has begun. We're taking her back to college and dropping her off in 2 weeks. And I say it all the time, but I want her to be proud to call our city home. And that's why I'm running, plain and simple. And so look forward to the conversation and really hearing more about the neighborhood, the individual concerns, because I want to get block by block. I think that matters. I think we need to have a mayor that's super engaged in what it's like to live here and to listen to your concerns and to act on it as well. So thank you all for having me. Look forward to our discussion.
Okay, so we're going to begin. Okay, I'm going to begin with kind of a big basic question, which is San Francisco used to be the epitome of cool. When you told people you were from San Francisco, people went, oh, San Francisco, that's amazing. When people said, I'm from the Mission District in San Francisco, that was like the nucleus of cool, right?
Very much so.
Right? Is it still cool? Do you think? Is San Francisco still a cool place?
Of course it is.
Right?
But we need to peel back the onion to make it cool again, right? I think we still have everything going for us as a city. I say that all the time. We still have our natural beauty. We still have our parks. We have our universities in San Francisco and in the Bay Area. But I think more than anything, we have our people. The people, our city represents an ethos and a spirit that I believe is unique around the world. And I believe it's worth fighting for. And we have lost our way as a city in the past few years, certainly since COVID, in terms of these core issues. But it's there for us. It's there for the taking. We just need a different type of leadership to make it happen.
Yeah, and their reputation has absolutely taken a beating. And that includes the Mission District, right? When people think of the Mission, it did used to be the bars, the restaurants, the nightclubs, the culture, right? I would love to put it out to the audience is, how has that changed? Does anybody have a comment about how that has changed?
Yeah, like 10 years ago, my husband and I did a little apartment in our house to rent, and 2 people they had been teaching overseas, I think Taiwan or something like that, and they knocked on the door and they were breathless. They came to my apartment from the airport, and they were so excited about getting a place in the Mission. Sight unseen. That's how cool it was. They ran from the airport straight to the apartment to rent it.
Wow.
And like, is it still available? You know, oh yeah, we're gonna live in the Mission. And that's a race.
It's erased. Okay,
Yeah.
so
and I'll tell you, by the way, a little story. This broke my heart, or actually, I got in a fight with a friend the other week. Lucky enough to be born and raised here, I have a lot of friends of mine that are same that I grew up with in school and so forth. We're diehard San Franciscans and always have been so proud of it. And he told me that for the first time, he went to New York for a work conference about a month ago, and they, the name badge, where are you from? He said California. He didn't put San Francisco because he didn't want to enter into that dialogue about what's wrong, what's the problem out there. He just wanted to avoid it. And that's, look, we don't want it to be that way. We can bring it back, but that's where we sit right now. That's the reality. And I think, as much as I want to be a cheerleader, and I am in San Francisco, I also think if you're going to fix our issues, you have to be honest about where we are today and then move in that direction. But to mask it and to say everything's just great, that's not reality.
Okay, and one of the major issues is crime.
Yeah.
Here in the Mission District, 3, was it murders or murders in a relatively short span of time.
In a week?
Yeah.
There was one by the bar, one on Shotwood and Twenty.
I met the guy who lives right next to Shotwell one the other night.
So that needs to be addressed. It does not seem to be getting better. It seems to be worsening.
Yeah.
How would you change this? What could you do?
Yeah, look, I feel like a broken record sometimes on the campaign trail, but I simply believe that public safety is the #1 job of our government. And it's what I focus on when I was in City Hall before, in partnership with Mayor Lee when I was budget chair, and then when I became mayor. We grew our police department to record staffing levels. We had over 2,300 officers in the police department. Since I left in 2018, we're down to 600. So it means essentially 25% of our police department is gone since I left. And that impacts us in our neighborhoods in major ways. Most district stations, and I don't know Mission specifically, are down between 30 to 40% staffing levels. And that means they can't fulfill or fill up their normal minimum staffing shifts at all. And I've been in Bayview, Southern Station, and Soma, and many other districts. Soma the other week, I went and did a ride-along late into the night, and it was a comment because I said, gosh, there's not a lot going on. He said, yeah, South of Market, which is where Southern Station covers, used to be one of the busiest stations at night because we had all the nightlife in San Francisco. All the clubs, all the bars, or a lot of them, restaurants. I said, now they're all closed. He said, so there's less, and now there's different type of vagrant behavior because it's closed and dark streets. But he showed me the staffing sheet for the next day. So Southern is a 7-car station, meaning they break up their area into 7 different jurisdictions where they should be having a patrol car in each jurisdiction at any given time. And in every patrol car is 2 officers. So minimum staffing is 14 people for Southern. Show me the staffing sheet for the Saturday, 4 people. That's all they could get. And so he said there are multiple parts, and the majority of our district that we cover just don't have police in them. Won't have police in them tomorrow. And as goes that station, goes the rest of the city as well. And so to me, that has to be the major priority.
So then how specifically would you be able to fill those ranks? Because it is tough trying to get people to become officers. We also have people who left during COVID, right? Are we going to be bringing them back? What would you as a mayor do to basically force the issue?
First of all, we need to change the support level within City Hall. I'm one that believes we need to be very prolific, and the mayor needs to be out in front saying, thank you to our police officers and firefighters for putting your lives on the line for us every day. We respect you and we honor you. That doesn't exist today, that dialogue. I do believe we need a new police chief. I've said it very clearly, Chief Scott's a good man, but average tenure of a police chief in the US is 3 years. He's been here close to 8, or I believe 8 at this point. I think we need to thank him for his service and move on to a police chief that will fight with the next mayor to do what I want to do. So this mayor defunded the police, $120 million 3 years ago. And with that, police staffing is down as well. And so what I will do as mayor, first of all, how I talk in City Hall, again, be very supportive of public safety officers. Not afraid to hold them accountable if they do things wrong. I want to be super clear about that. But absence of wrongdoing, thank you for what you do for us. Fully fund our police department once again. And then staffing, it all trickles down to that quite a bit. So it's a 3-part process from my point of view. Number one and two are these stopgap measures. First is a drop program. I talked about it when I first launched my campaign. Supervisor Dorsey has now put it on the ballot for November. I'm happy about that. It basically says for police officers that are on the verge of retirement, you can stay on the police force for up to 5 more years, so long as you're on patrol, not at a desk job, and you can continue to work and accrue a pension. That to me, I think is something we should drastically support, because now we're keeping people that would have otherwise been gone on the workforce, and now really experienced officers as well. So the estimate is between 100 and 200 officers will stay on the workforce that would have otherwise retired.
And what's the reason why that isn't just the normal case now again?
So the way that our city pension system works, you multiply your years of service times a rate. And public safety rates are higher because they're more kind of, you put the lives on the line for us. It's 3%. So the typical public safety officer is always talk about 3 and 30. When you get to 30 years of service, you accrued 3% a year, you basically can retire with 90% of your salary.
Okay.
But it capped out at that.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as you hit 30 years, and you had to be 55 by the way, as soon as you hit 30 years, you're working for 10% of your salary. That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so you retire. And this one allows you to continue to accrue a pension during those times that you're still working. It makes all the sense in the world. It's no more expensive than hiring a new person, except for you're probably paying a higher wage because they have some more seniority. But other than that, again, it's rank and file. It's officers and patrolmen and sergeants. It's not higher level, higher paid police officers.
Mm-hmm.
It makes all the sense in the world. And then, yep, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
So I was going to say, the second part of this is around lateral hiring, because so Alameda County offers $75,000 for a lateral recruit for their police department over 2 years. Now, I'm not one that believes we should be doing that or trying to match that, because at a downside, you create a mercenary workforce. We don't want that here. But our entire recruiting budget for our police department in San Francisco is $250 grand a year. It's a joke. We're not even trying to compete. And whether it's housing subsidies or other things we might need to do to entice laterals to come here or not. And then the last part is the police academy. And then, that's what Mayor Lee and I flooded for 5 years. 5 academy classes a year, over 50 recruits a class. That's how we grow a police department, how we need to do it here. But why we have those first 2 stopgap measures is because it takes 2-3 years to really have people come through where you're seeing a meaningful difference in staffing. Because enter the academy to graduate essentially through field training officer program, it's about 2 years.
Right.
And this current mayor, we did 5 academy classes a year or 50 recruits. This mayor, 3 academy classes a year. The last one graduated 17 recruits.
Okay, so, but regarding crime, so here we are, we've got our police officers, they're on the street, you're looking around and you say, I see crime, I see theft, I see evidence of theft. I mean, it's like, it feels so completely out of control.
Yeah.
And I understand that it is a leadership issue. You have, what's going on with the police force? We do have some cops here. Why aren't they making the arrests? Why has this been allowed to continue? You walk along Mission Street and you see block after block after block filled with merchandise that people have stolen, and it's right there on the street. You get a block that has all the tools. You've got a block that has all the stuff from Walgreens. Do you feel, okay, so people are going to be voting for mayor, right? What distinguishes you from them regarding something like that in terms of how can you change this atmosphere of anything goes? Anything goes. We've got the cops, there are some out there. What could you possibly do to make a change?
Well, first of all, with our current mayor, she's the one who's allowing it to happen. So there's a distinction.
And supervisor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
For sure, part of the issue. For me, it's about who do you really believe is going to come in with force and have a policy of no tolerance for this. I did it before when I was a supervisor, when I was mayor, certainly around tenant encampments, the open air drug markets, and I will do it again here. And for me, part of the issue is it does get back to staffing, police staffing for these open air markets, because by state law, the police can't be the lead agency to address those markets, but we have to have enough police officers to follow the DPW, DPH workers that are actually going out and dismantling them. When you don't have enough officers to actually accompany these workers, then those workers don't want to go out on their own because they're getting assaulted. So it does come back to police staffing at the end of the day, and it's a belief in who has a track record of and who's going to be dogmatic about growing our police department once again.
Okay, I mean, I have to ask the crowd, are you guys sick of, it's gonna happen, we're gonna clamp down.
I don't know about clamp down, but I'm in retail. I
Okay.
have 4 retail businesses here in the city. And theft is a real issue. Like they come and like, they're not even trying to hide it, man. They just come and boom and walk out. You go to like Safeway or Walgreens, I mean, it is blunt. It is blunt. And you got security officers standing there and it's like, I don't know, like you don't do anything. Now, I don't know, like I come from a culture where like you're somebody assaults your property, it's an assault on you, right? So it is really, it's hard to watch your hard work being just so made available for, I don't wanna just,
You
and not
feel
be able to do
abused.
anything
It
about
feels
it.
abusive.
It really
right?
does, it really
Yeah.
does, you know? And like,
Waiting around for something to happen is so frustrating, yes.
So I just want to say something. I think Mark had one of the best proposals I've ever heard. I mean, it's going to take us beyond our lifetime to get the police force back to what it was. We can't afford that. Businesses are closing because this is happening. I mean, San Francisco is what economists call a consumer city. We're here because of the restaurants, of all those amenities there. If the crime rate continues, we're going to lose that.
Yes.
So Mark's idea of the National Guard, I think that is the only thing that can have enough number to do that. So the question for you is, I know that you've been trying to be very politically correct, that the National Guard are going to be in the offices. Why? Why don't they be on the streets?
So the National Guard conversation came in the context of, and let me just quickly say real quick. So crime, there has to be consequences to crime if we live in a civil society. The local Walgreens by my house, every day is getting looted. Same thing, we should be locking on criminals, not shampoo bottles, right?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
more officers aren't the solution to everything, but it's so much that people talk about right now, because you need to have a presence in our neighborhoods to deter crime. To make arrests and then people come back and say, I got arrested, I'm not gonna come back to that store. But when they keep looting the same store and nothing happens to them, guess what? They're coming back. So we have to break that cycle. And that has to be a priority, but that only comes with a change of leadership in City Hall. Right now it's a tolerance, and I agree with you, it's a personal affront when this happens. Our home, somebody broke into our home in the middle of the night a year and a half ago, and we're sleeping there with our 3 kids. I mean, that is such a violation, right? Just like it should be your store.
It's an insult on one's person.
100%, but we miss this notion. San Francisco becomes like, not just, it's like a playground for this, as opposed to, where's our sense of civic pride that I remember growing up in San Francisco
You
with?
see it on camera too, like with the Apple Store, like people are standing watching and
Yeah.
these people are grabbing and putting.
So that has to end. So, but sorry, you mentioned the National Guard.
Yes.
So I've been very public in saying, the day I get into office, declare a fentanyl state of emergency, because our drug crisis is out of control in San Francisco. We have record numbers of people overdosing on our streets every single year, every single month. And our city's approach right now, just harm reduction only, makes no sense at all. And it's not working. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? So what does a fentanyl state of emergency allow you to do? One, it allows you to ask the state and the feds for additional financial help towards that emergency. Now, the state's going through its own fiscal issues. We'll see with the federal government, especially if a different person gets elected. I don't think they're going to be helping San Francisco a lot. But the one thing that I do think will happen is law enforcement. We can ask the state and the feds, secondly, for law enforcement help. And from the state side, look, we don't know if they will give us National Guard, CHP, we're at their largesse. But whatever it is, and National Guard can't be out on the streets by law. They have to be strategic in operations. That's not a choice of mine. It's not being political, right? It's just what it is. CHP can be out on the streets more, doing traffic and violations and things like that. So it's not perfect, right? The state part is important though. But really, I actually think that the unlock is the federal law enforcement. Because if we're, it's been documented, I don't wish it to be the case, but 95% of the drug dealing are Hondurans right now in San Francisco. We have to be honest about that if we're going to tackle it. Deportation and the risk of deportation has to be part of the equation. Because when I was there, when police officers hand them tickets, they laugh. We're not deterring crime. And it's not about being harsh, it's not about being anything, but we got to protect and look out for San Francisco residents and save lives here. And to allow this to fester, Obviously, the Tenderloin's the heart of it. It goes so much. I'm sure it's down here in Mission without a doubt. Like, we can't allow that to continue. We have to tackle it in a different way. So that's where, you know, when I said this, you know, my opponents in this race, well, of course, they're trying to take advantage of a boy. He's a real conservative guy who wants more law enforcement. But I believe the drug dealing side of the equation is a law enforcement question. Yes, the drug addiction side is a health issue and an addiction issue. We got to try to treat it in a different way. But we got to arrest the drug dealers and get after it in a sincere way where they actually fear being arrested by local police or by the feds because of the consequences thereof. We don't have that today. We're not talking about it today as a city government. That's the way we're going to make a real difference on our streets.
But I think that's a really, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong San Francisco. I was born and raised in Mission. Mission Street, 40, 50 years ago, was a vibrant neighborhood, small businesses, local Mission residents patronize these businesses. It's a thriving economic center of San Francisco.
Yep.
The question I have for you is, why don't you put your businessman hat on now? Not your mayor's hat.
I got you.
Businessman
Yep.
hat. Explain to me how to revitalize Mission Street. Mission Street today looks like a third world street in a third world country. Really does.
It does, if not worse.
How do you explain walking 2 blocks up 24th in Lily Valley, which is a thriving local economy, where Lily Valley residents patronize the businesses there. Streets are clean. 3 blocks down from Laura Street, we're in Mission, which looks like a third world country. How do you revitalize the Mission? How would you approach that problem? In the same, and I heard you speak at Manny's when you talked about walking down Powell Street with all the 4 signs in the windows, and you described it as a ghost town.
Yep.
Those were your words. Well, Mission Street is a ghost town, but with the exception that now it's becoming what I consider the new Tenderloin. Now we've got the dopers, the dealers,
Yep.
the alcoholics. Now, literally, lying on the streets of Michigan. How do you, are you going to hire the best of the brightest, as JFK said before he was elected? You're a young guy coming into the mayor's office. You have connections in tech. Who in your staff, and as you, the leader of the city, how will we revitalize certain areas of San Francisco?
I agree. Thank you for the question. So let me talk a few ways about that. So first of all, I firmly believe, again, back to these issues we've been talking about already, but the first step has to be to make it safe with clean sidewalks, meaning the homeless and the drug crisis. That has to be tackled. Unless you do that in earnest, there's no way it's going to be a sustainable economic recovery, period. If you are a rational businessman and you walk down Mission today, are you going to invest your dollars to open up a store there?
No.
I mean, unless you get a free rent. I mean, but that's being honest, right? And so you have to create the conditions for the economy and the local economy, whether it's on Mission or downtown or anywhere you want to pick, can thrive. But there has to be a base level of safety and cleanliness so you'll have customers. So your employees will come to work. Twitter, or X now, just left San Francisco, and look, Elon Musk has his own kind of issue. But they didn't go to Texas and say this is a tax issue. They just moved to Palo Alto. Because they said their employees were getting assaulted every day going into the office. Like, that can't exist, right? That is the baseline thing that the next mayor has to do, but has to do it with a focus, almost like with blinders on, to get that tackled first. Because that affects everything you do. It also affects you living near the neighborhood. Such a priority. And so that's number one. Number two, you mentioned who will do this, if you will. So first of all, I'm very hands-on, I'm a policy nerd, I'm all over it. And I also believe that, my point of view in San Francisco, growing up here as well, the heart and soul of our city is our neighborhoods. And whether it's the Mission or North Beach or West Portal, pick your poison. This is the heart and soul of our city. And the beating heart of our neighborhoods are our commercial corridors. Right? For me, I grew up outside the Presidio, so Chestnut was the commercial corridor. People don't realize the evolution of Chestnut over the years. When I grew up, the Presidio movie theater was a porno theater because it catered to all the GIs and the Presidio. Like, things change, but you still have to have those basic elements of cleanliness and safety in order to have a thriving environment. When I launched my campaign, I said I'm going to audit all the nonprofits in San Francisco that the city funds, because the amount of spending is wasteful, and I'm happy to get into that if you want. I got a call from somebody, and he said, hey, I actually commissioned McKinsey to do a study on this. You want to talk to the person who did the study? I said, yeah. She's a partner at McKinsey, runs their global government practice. And we sat down, we sat down 3 times. We went through it, and he said, you know, Mark, what's interesting, he said, our San Francisco office, we hold on to young employees, so associates and engagement managers there, better than any other office in the United States. Our retention's better. It shocked me. I said, wow, that's amazing. Why? He said, because we allow them to work on pro bono on San Francisco projects, and they really want to engage. I'll tell you, being in City Hall before, one of my frustrating elements, even as much as I'm from the tech sector, we have all this private sector talent around us, but we never harnessed it to make a better city government. We ask people for donations, and we'll always do that, and we're thankful for that. But we never really operationalized it inside of city government. So I asked him when he told me this, I said, okay, random thought, but what if we created a rotational program inside of City Hall where your younger staff, or if you allow senior people to do it, can come work in City Hall for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever, we'll figure this out. But instead of stepping off their career track, so they're leaving McKinsey, think of it as like getting seconded to a client at some point in your career, where it's actually viewed as you can go back, your job will be secure, you can go back to McKinsey. And it's almost viewed as, hey, I got some experience almost in-house now, I can be a better consultant for other governments, because I've been inside. He said, I love it. Well, done, we're gonna do it. And so I've talked to Bain since then, another consulting firm, just because it's in the same vein. I've talked to 3 different big law firms, all on board, many different financial firms, and now I'm talking to a large part of the tech community as well. They're all super enthusiastic about it. So we're putting the legal framework in place. But one of the most exciting things I don't get to talk about very often on the campaign trail is all this private sector talent now we're going to be able to harness inside of City Hall to almost be kind of it's like a hit squad, right? Hey, if you really care, if you're passionate about health, okay, let's go look at our Department of Public Health. How's that working? Is it working well? What can we do to audit this? We'll have different teams with multiple disciplinary teams attacking that. We've never had that, ever, inside of our city government. Why? We just keep growing and growing and growing to no effect for the residents of our city. I think that's super exciting. And oh, by the way, I asked a partner, McKinsey. He said he'd leave McKinsey to come work and lead that effort for us. And so I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to bring and the difference we'll be able to make a better city government much more responsive for your issue in particular.
Yes.
So I have 2. The first one is the Reed has always used the excuse that the Board of Supervisors has handcuffed her, so she can't do anything. How do you plan on doing that? And then my second
Thank you.
one,
That was actually going to be my question.
I was learning from you earlier. And then the second one is completely unrelated to that. It's that Together SF is endorsing you as number 1. They're telling us to vote Reed number 2, Lori number 3. Why would we? I don't understand. I feel like people who are going to vote for you would probably also be in the vein of Lori, and Reed would not be on the ballot at all. And I know that we have to do ranked choice voting, but who would be your choice?
Yeah, well, so let me tackle that question first. I'm very public about it. I hope, and I'll ask everyone here tonight to put me first. And I think people should use the ranked choice voting system. I hate it, by the way. I tried to get rid of it when I was in City Hall before. I think if there's one thing in democracy that should be simple, is how to vote. And people are confused. And we have a pretty educated electorate in San Francisco, and people just still don't get how it works. But it is what it is. We got to deal with it. So put someone second, put someone third. Never put anyone on the ballot you would never want to see in office. Who you put second and third though, that's up to you. I can't answer for what Together SF did, their second and third choices. Right? They have an independent board. As much as people were making all these connections with me and the people that work there, yes, I have relationships with them, but that process was their process and independent, respectful thereof. So I don't know the answer there. And everyone has different points of view, you know? And yeah, some people vote for Lurie, some people vote for Asha, some people will vote for Peskin, not as many, but, and so, you know, that's really an individual choice. I think my mantra is more of, please, I ask people to put me first. That's why I'm running. That's how we're gonna win. But put somebody else second or third. I think it's important.
So there are only 3 names?
No, they fixed the computers this year, so you can vote for up to 10 people.
Are they 10 people actually running?
My understanding is like 15 people qualified or something like that. I mean, there'll be a longer list of names.
Okay, now working with the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, right. So, great question. Get it all the time. That's a bunch of BS. So, look, having been a supervisor, having been mayor, 90% of what a mayor does has nothing to do with the Board of Supervisors. You're running your mayoral departments. You're governing the city of San Francisco. I will tell you, as mayor, 8:15 on my desk every day. Brought out the whiteboards, department heads in all the time, set policy, vision, underlying staff, bringing them back every other week, holding them accountable. I know their name, I know the kids' names, engaged management of the city. And when I took out all the large tenant encampments in 2018 when I was mayor, I didn't ask the Board of Supervisors. I brought my department heads together around a small conference table. I said, we're changing our policy. I'm gonna come with you and do it with you so you know you're serious. This isn't some media stunt. And we got it done, and we started changing policy. And we made a massive difference for the city of San Francisco. So, an excuse of the Board of Supervisors is just that, it's an excuse. Let's take the budget. This year's budget was $15.8 billion. The Board of Supervisors tinkered with 70 million of that. So the mayor is all powerful as it relates to the budget as well, which is the most important. If you want to look at any executive in government, mayor, governor, what have you, policy document, look at their budget. What they spend their money on is their priorities. And the mayor has vast control over more than 99% of the city budget without even a questioning by the Board of Supervisors. So it's all powerful position. And it's a misnomer, an excuse, part of the excuse train here out of City Hall. It's wrong. But I'll also say this, and I say it often. And when I was on the board, I always represented the center and right part of the political spectrum of San Francisco. But I made it my priority to work with people on the far left because I knew we were going to disagree on 95% of the issues. But I believed it was my job to find common ground with them, to build relationships, so that when we got to that 20th issue, we could agree on it, we'd work on that together hard, and we'd start to make a difference for the city. I give Mayor Lee great credit for setting a lot of that tone inside of City Hall. He was a very patient man. But right now, the tone in City Hall is a blame game, and it's personal. You're a bad human being if you don't agree with me. And that is not conducive to a working relationship in politics or in life. And to me, resetting that tone that, again, Mayor Lee brought in, I continued it when I was mayor, it starts in the mayor's office. What's that working relationship like? I respect you if we disagree on this issue. I respect you if we disagree on these 10 issues. We might yell at each other in the press or on the cameras, but behind closed doors, we should be able to have a beer together and talk about it. And bringing that back into City Hall, the laws we passed at the board because of that, around financial reform, mental health law, Laura's law, third rail of progressive left politics in San Francisco when I introduced it. It had been introduced 3 times.
Can you explain what Laura's law is?
So Laura's law, for those, if you have a family member with a mental health issue, but they're taking prescribed medicine for it, you know, a lot of people can live very normal lives if they just take their meds. I have a family member, not immediate, but a family member that has bipolar disease and is on meds for it, and you would never know. You would never know. But there is a condition that exists within this community where they start to say, hey, I'm fine, I don't need my meds anymore. And the only reason they are fine is because they're taking their meds. So when they get off it, it's a problem. but they don't, there's a self-realization issue. So Laura's law was adopted, you had to opt into it as a county. The state passed it, the counties had to opt into it. And said, if you have a loved one that has a mental health issue and they're not taking their meds, you can bring them in front of a judge. And the judge can say, you have a condition. You either take your prescribed medicine or you're gonna face a short period of time in county jail. Give them an option. Black robe effect, there's a lot of terms around this. Great success. Again, third rail of progressive left politics when I introduced it. 3 times been brought up, never even got to a vote at the Board of Supervisors. I passed it 9-2 because we had those relationships intact, because we found ways to work together, start dialoguing. And I said, look, there was a dialogue and there isn't. Look, there's this concept, maybe in life generally, about civil rights and what I can do with my body or what have you. And people were saying, hey, it's against kind of their civil liberties, kind of coerce them to take their meds. And I said, yeah, I hear you, but also when they're prescribed medicine by a doctor, and instead you're letting them talk to Jesus on the street corner by him or herself, and now their community and their family and their loved ones view them as a crazy person on the corner, that's against their own rights as well, when they can live a very normal life.
Okay, but Mark, a lot of this is theoretical. Like, it makes sense what you say, but I went to a meeting last night and it was down in Union Square. It was the worst I've seen it in a long time. It was horrendous. I mean, there were people passed out, there were people screaming. It was at the cable car turnaround. There was somebody screaming. It was like operatic level screaming at the people waiting for the cable car turnaround. You could have it right here on Mission Street. It would be the same thing, right? Meanwhile, I went up to the meeting and it was full of monkey mucks, full of politicians, even police officers and city leaders who are having a great time. I had to leave. I left 20 minutes into it thinking, this is messed up. Y'all can party and have fun and think great things about yourself, but meanwhile, it's all falling apart underneath your feet. As a leader, as a mayor, would you be able to sleep at night thinking, oh, I'm just gonna have a great time? Meanwhile, there's literally mayhem going on outside. And I think that's what a lot of us feel. Like, how do they sleep at night? Do you have a comment about that? Because to me, that's like the crux of this thing. I go to sleep thinking, oh God, what can we do to make this city better? I'm just wondering, does everyone?
Doubt it. Doubt it. Let me just wrap up this slide. So I just want to say, with laws like that, the point is there's ways to work together even if you don't agree on the vast majority of issues. But you have to have that working relationship and that mantra that you're paid by the residents and the voters of San Francisco to find common ground. You're not paid to blame each other and walk away and make it personal. Leave that to DC. We have too much going on here in San Francisco. Let's just focus on results. I don't care about ideology anymore. I just want to focus on results. Let's work together. So that's a difference that I will bring. So you mentioned that. I mean, can you go to sleep? Sure, you have to go to sleep at some point. But are you clinking champagne bottles 2 floors above while the people are screaming? No, right? I mean, that's, and again, that's a different approach. Like, I say this often though on the campaign trail, but it's very important to say this again and again. People's motivations for running or being in office, I think, is important because it affects how they do the job and their approach. For me, it's not about a career, and it's definitely not about vanity, right? I'm not doing this out of ego. Like, I'm a dad of 3 kids. I'm only doing this to bring our city back. So whatever that takes, I will do that. And if it is making sure that we have, greater police presence on our streets, taking this person and bringing him into county jail in a second, I will do that because that is why I'm running for office. I am not doing it I can clink champagne glasses on my own. I don't need to do that.
Okay, does anybody want to talk about the transportation issue and MTA, but oh yes.
I kind of want to riff on this kind of accountability and talking a little bit about, you mentioned it a little bit when you were saying earlier. I think San Francisco is incredibly cool. I got sucked into the cool factor 9 years when I moved here. I personally think we need to be a little less cool and a little bit more functioning at this point.
Fully agree.
And I think that does tie back to just like having a functioning city, being able to clean streets, I think we have something like one municipal employee for every 30 people in 30.
A little bit more, little-
36,000.
Yeah, which I think the math comes out to like 1 per 30 citizens. And it doesn't feel like we have a city that operates with that, any kind of efficiency. I used to be a consultant, love the idea of bringing in, people that can help with this. I also know that, you come into an organization, it's not functioning well, you can wait out a consultant's contract for 6 months, a year, or whatever. So like, I want to hear a little bit more about like, how do we use the resources that we already have? And I do think we have a lot of resources, financial, intellect-wise and everything. But how do we use the resources that we have and hold some of these departments accountable? And if we can't, if progress is not being made, how do we change something to make progress?
I think it's a great question, and again, to me, it gets back to plain and simple leadership and what we've missed in City Hall right now. When I half joke, but I'm really serious about when I was at 8:15, that was show up at my desk every morning. Unless I had to do some media event, we cranked. I had lunch brought in, like I said, it took actively managing our city government. And that takes hours upon hours of staff time and people that are very smart and very dedicated. And department heads that are responsive to you. This current administration doesn't do it that way, with respect. And when you're only in the office a few hours a day, and that's not your priority to manage, it's more about the vanity of the job. It's very foreseeable that you're going to have your city departments basically run with their own agendas. And we're not going to have a functioning city government. We need somebody who's going to come in, and this is where I believe experience really does matter. And competence matters. And a strong vision for our city matters. Someone who's going to come in and hit the ground running on day one, managing our city, but also taking our city in a different direction. That has not happened today. And I know that those are kind of broader terms, but it's really the core of what's going on right now. And you have to have someone who's interested in doing that. And by the way, also leadership styles, right? You have to call people out. So it didn't bring great joy for me to say, hey, I think that we need a new police chief, because I know Chief Scott, he's a good guy. Like, truly a good family man. But I'm also not afraid to say, hey, look, if you preside over a department that has been defunded, where staffing levels are down, where you can't recruit, where morale is down, I'm sorry, in my private sector career, that CEO of that company needs to go. And we need to bring someone else in. It's not personal. We need that type of leadership. And as goes that department, though, I guess my point is, as goes every other department inside of city government. This isn't a lifetime appointment. You're here to be accountable to me as mayor, if I hire you or keep you on, and ultimately to the voters of San Francisco. And if you're not doing your job, you're gone. And I'm not afraid to do that.
Okay, so we have a public health department, which is the largest department in the city. It's, I believe, just about $3 billion.
More.
Is it more?
A little bit.
Okay, a little bit more than $3 billion in annual budget. We should have the best, most healthy city in the world, right? What happened? And what would you do? How could you change that?
Well,
People are, I mean, right outside when I came in here, there was somebody flat on their face. I mean, like, we are not healthy. This is not working. Something is not working.
this again gets to management and leadership, right? So let's talk about the approach to the drug crisis. We mentioned harm reduction, right? Okay. To me, harm reduction, the epitome of harm reduction is what we do today. Hand out in the Tenderloin on shopping carts for free packets of tinfoil and straws for people that are suffering from fentanyl addiction to keep doing them. Okay. It is one thing to say, and other countries do this, other places do this, in a continuum of care, harm reduction has a place for maybe 5% of your approach over here. Yep. Okay. However, our entire approach is harm reduction in San Francisco, and it doesn't work. And again, you can have a mayor that says, I'm sick of the BS in the Tenderloin. I'm declaring a Tenderloin emergency. What happened? Nothing. Because you gotta follow through. You gotta bust your department heads. You gotta say, this is my approach. You are implementing my approach. And when it doesn't happen, now departments also know you don't have to follow what the mayor says. You can keep doing what you want to do. And so that to me is what leadership is all about inside of city government. You have to have your department heads rolling on the same
So
mold.
how would you rein it in though? What would you do? Would you fire people?
Absolutely.
Would you reduce staff? Would you, okay.
All of the above.
All the above.
All of the above. There are no sacred cows. The only sacred cow is bringing San Francisco back, and whatever it takes to restructure, to have the right people in place within our city government. Again, having been there as a supervisor and as mayor, I know where the institutional boundaries lie, where some people are getting away with stuff, what's being hidden. We have to have someone coming in and root that out and making sure we're all functioning as a city government. Every single department has to be that way.
FYI, she didn't even have data when she declared war on the Tenderloin. She didn't have data on the program evaluation. She didn't know the numbers. She had no way. But this decline can be actually explained by the drop in the fentanyl over the city. So there was no differential rate between the Tenderloin and the rest of the city.
Yep. Otherwise, just give them a 5-minute warning. So
5 minutes? How much time do we have?
4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes. Wow.
I thought we have you until 6:30.
Yeah, I thought it was 6:30.
no?
No?
I thought 7:30.
Sophie's the hammer.
It's 6:11 right now. So what time are we supposed
All
to
right.
end?
Well, we'll give it a few more minutes.
Okay.
I'll
All
just
right.
text them. We'll be a little bit late.
Yeah, because we got this schedule.
Yes.
Is San Francisco ready for Mark Farrell as mayor? And the
Yeah.
reason I ask this is the politics. There's, I think, a real shift in terms of the politics in San Francisco, especially after the recall of school board members.
And the DA. And the district attorney.
And the impact of the ancient vote in San Francisco. How is the politics now different than when you were a supervisor? And how will it impact your politics as a candidate for mayor? Because your politics, I think, is very different from some of the other candidates in
Yeah.
a big way.
Yep. Look, the city electorate has changed definitely since I left office. The city electorate did do a DA recall. The city electorate did do a school board recall. But I think the reason why it happened has shifted. I felt it in my own family is because of the conditions we're all being faced with on the streets every day of our lives. And it was born out of the results of our existing city government. And the lack of attention on these core basic issues. Talk about running a business. There can't be crime rampant or no consequences. I mean, that's a joke, right? That's not that's not a law and order society that the United States is based on. And so yes, I believe San Francisco residents are ready for it and wanting it. There was a poll out today in the Chronicle that was less favorable for us. There was a poll 2 weeks before that was equally favorable for us versus London. It's coming down to a 2-horse race. Every poll said that for months. And there was one 3 weeks ago that had us in dead heat. So we're entering post-Labor Day, let's go. And I believe that just really stark difference to say, do you want more of the same? You like what we got? Or do we need to change of direction?
Let's get one more question, then we'll wrap up. Yes.
Mark, I'm going to take the conversation in a slightly different direction. I'm curious about what you said about commissions, city commissions. Did you address this before?
No.
No.
Specifically, commissions in general, the number of commissions,
Yep.
how effective they are, whether or not they're bogging our city down, and then also specifically the Arts Commission.
Okay.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the Arts Commission.
Sure. So we have today over 130 city commissions. That cost us
Commissions, not commissioners.
commissions.
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 Each one of those has multiple commissions.
Yes.
Okay.
And so on average, they cost over $250 grand a year to just run them. We even have a commission that still meets when the underlying department was eliminated. It's still meeting. So there's a ballot measure that Together SF has authored originally. It's on the November ballot to reform the commission structure. Early supporter of it because I see the value in it in multiple ways. Number one, it reduces the commissions to 65 maximum. I think it's important. We don't need 130 plus commissions to run our city of 800,000 people, 850,000. We don't need what the commission, to your point about the Arts Commission, it identifies a number of core commissions, police, I think fire, port, things like that. And then I think it's 40 of them that says, and then we'll form a committee, they'll evaluate what are the remaining 25 that will be in there. Arts would be great to be part of. I'd be fully supportive of that. But that's a variable right now within this ballot measure, to be very transparent. The second part, and I think the most important part of this ballot measure, is that it takes the commissions right now that are all policy bodies. So for instance, a police commission that has a majority of people that have no law enforcement background are dictating policy to the police officers on the streets of our city. That's crazy. In ways that I think are very antithetical to public safety. And you talk to the cops, they would definitely agree. A large part of the reason you have this kind of people say they don't want to do their job. I don't think it's actually that. I think they feel hamstrung by what they're being told and the directives that they're given by the police commission. So it turns them all from policy bodies to advisory only. And so it vests all the authority to run these departments in the department head. So in this case, the police chief. Which if you want an accountable city government, you need to have that. You want the department head responsible for dictating policies. And therefore, it also allows the mayor to hire and fire every department head, which you also want right now, because it's a matrix between commissioners and what have you. And look, we had the current system when I was in office before. If you had a strong mayor that managed his or her different commissioners well, it wasn't an issue. But Mayor Breed appointed 2 people to the police commission that she didn't vet properly, who are promoting a lot of these policies that kind of flipped on her. And it exposed this glitch in the matrix that these people are appointed for 4 years. And unless you do something where you have to go to jail, you're there. You can't remove them. And they're not accountable to the people that appointed them as elected officials, or let alone to the voters of San Francisco. And to me, when you actually really look at it through that lens, it's very undemocratic. And so the last part, it makes all the commissioners at will. Can be hired, fired at any point in time. But the most important part is that they're no longer driving policy. Because if we're being honest, police, but a lot of these commissions are political appointments.
Yes.
And people are using them as stepping stones for their next thing. So what does that mean, though? It means that, for instance,
And free healthcare, because they get free healthcare.
well, you know this well, Lynn. Okay. But it means, what we saw, for instance, during COVID with our school board. Now, you don't have to have kids in the school system or have kids to be a school board member. I'm not trying to say that. But you have people making decisions about schools in a very political manner, right? I'm going to rename public schools, but I'm not going to focus on getting the kids into the classroom. Come on. I mean, that should piss all of us off.
Yeah.
And that is exacerbated, but that's the problem with the current system. And why, when this measure came forward, I said, absolutely, this is going to have a transformative effect for city government moving forward, what I believe in.
Okay. Well, on that note, we didn't get to a lot of major issues that are going on in the mission, like transportation.
5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Let's go. I'm
Does
gonna
anybody have
I'm gonna
yes,
get killed.
Yes, my dear.
Okay, it seems like, there's so many issues that you need to resolve if you become a mayor. And 4 years is pretty quick, if let's say, So the first year, what would be your priority for your first year? 6 to 12 months once you get elected, because, yes.
Okay. It's the ones we've talked about. First and foremost, it's public safety.
You don't sleep.
I don't really sleep anyways, but that's okay. It's my own dilemma. Public safety is one, without a doubt. Number 2, around homelessness. Number 3 is the drug crisis. And say 4 is our economy. That goes for downtown and it goes for Mission. That goes for our local neighborhoods as well, commercial corridors. We need a mayor who's going to, you can say, I support small business, but I own small business. We are faced even in the commercial corridors that are doing seemingly well. most small businesses are down 20-30% in revenue with rising cost structures. I mean, breaking people's backs. And you know, I don't know if your inventory insurance has gone up with your stores.
Every year.
Yeah. And they do it by zip code, so guess what happens?
Every year.
San Francisco insurance rates are going up.
Actually, it's difficult to get insurance now. For the last 3 years, my business liability insurance, companies that sit there, I said in California market.
Yeah.
And every time I find an alternative, it's 15-20% more.
Yeah. So, anyways, those are my priorities. Look, I'm one that believes you can walk and chew gum at the same time, so you're still going to tackle everything else that's going on in the city. But as much as I believe in our city and it is there to bring it back, to get there, we have to have a laser focus on these core issues first. And you create an environment for everything else to bloom once those things start to get addressed. Without it, again, I don't think economic recovery is sustainable unless those open air drug markets are gone on mission. I just don't. You can have temporary success, but you're not going to have sustained success. And you need to have a leader inside of City Hall that's going to make that the priority, be dogged about it, willing to take the criticism that's going to come your way. When I did it with the tenant encampments, I say it often, when I was mayor in 2018, they protested in front of my house with brooms, the Coalition on Homelessness, with my 5-year-old in the front window. I'm still here, knowing that's going to come, because it's worth it. San Francisco is worth fighting for and bringing back, and I think I know we can do it.
Can you touch a little bit on the school district, what you would do for the schools?
Yeah, absolutely. The background becomes, because we have a separately elected school board that dictates the policy and the budget of our school district. City Hall's been pretty divorced from our public school system. Well, it's tough because we give them close to $200 million a year out of our general fund, but it's truly a no strings attached by the voter mandate, which is fine. That's what we live with that. But it's tough when they make decisions that we think are wrong or that I think are wrong. I mentioned the school renaming when the kids aren't in school, and that's a joke. That being said, you know, high level, if we want San Francisco to be the great city we all imagine it can be, should be, and will be, we have to have a great public school system. And so I want to be the most proactive mayor with our public school system ever inside of City Hall. And I'll give you 3 things. Number 1, 3rd grade reading proficiency. It's one of the 3 pillars of our public school system. I'm not an educator, so I don't pretend to be that deep, but I'm dangerous enough because I've talked to enough people in that area, in that arena. It's a marker of success for kids in grammar school, academically, and in high school and beyond. It is so important. It's what the California Bureau of Prisons uses to plan for future prison beds in California. So it's important we get it right. So we have a Department of Early Childhood inside of City Hall. Issues tens of millions of dollars a year in grants for youth programs. And for being honest, it's about who you know right now gets those grants. I've been very public in my commitment that my first funding priority out of that department will be 3rd grade reading proficiency program for our public school families. Again, I can't step in the policy body, I can't step into the budget authority of the school district board, but I can darn well sure help these families and help these kids achieve what is probably one of the most significant goals that they need to achieve early on in their education. I will do that. Second of all, MTA. Public school families rely on Muni quite a bit. And I hear time and time again, as hard as it is to get your kids out of the house in the morning to the school bus stop, full bus drives by, or a bus doesn't show up for half an hour, and now they're late, and there's stigma, right? Or truancy, when you don't show up to school post-COVID, is a massive problem in San Francisco, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because part of our funding formula is how many days in school every individual child is. So it's a problem for us. I'm very public about my commitment to mandate that our MTA and Muni actively engage and work with, and I will be all over this with our public school district, especially in the mornings, run bus routes and frequency of routes to make sure every public school family, the commitment from the city is you get your kid to the bus stop on time, we will get you to school on time. It has to be a commitment. It's never been done before, or talked about before, or pressured on before. I will do that. And then lastly is around public safety. So the public school district cut ties with the police department during COVID. Another decision I disagreed with. They've had some very well publicized incidents since then, right? The guy found lurking in the Lowell women's bathroom earlier this year, one morning. And there are other ones like that. They're just so egregious. But, okay, so I can't make them flip that decision, right? We can elect better school board members. Hopefully they bring back common sense. And I believe this election we actually have some hope in that regard. But I also talk to public school families a lot, and they say, you know what, when I enter school grounds, I go through tents, I go through people smoking fentanyl, yelling, screaming. Like, you know, when your kid enters the school, you need them, especially as the younger they are, to be in a mental mindset willing and open to learn, as opposed to just ducking, shucking and driving and ducking people to get into the fence, right? So what I've been we batter around different ideas. So what I will do is create a priority 311 code. So any street issue within a 1 block radius of our public schools will get knocked out in 24 hours. That's my commitment. Our kids have to enter their school grounds, you know, again, ready and willing and able to learn. So again, and let me just put a 4th asterisk by all of this and saying any other great ideas I'm all about. So please come forward with them. It is high time that the mayor's office engage with our public school system in meaningful ways.
I think so.
We've never done it before, and that is my plan. And whether it's because I'm from here, raising my kids here, although we're a Catholic family, so I went to Catholic schools, my kids are going to Catholic schools. I don't care. We have to have a great public school system. Whatever I can do as mayor to help support that, I will do that.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you everyone.